Okay, congratulations. You both just cast your first creation magic spell. Now, I want you to understand that the strength of those weapons does not exceed the energy that you imbued into them. The less energy you provide, the weaker the weapon. I'm able to reach much the same effect with my fog. It all depends on the density of the amount of demonic energy that you put into it, just like with my own weapon. Except I get to skip the creation magic process because my ability makes the same thing possible. And just like any regular weapon, those can be broken. If that happens, the energy that you use to create it is dispersed, meaning that you'll have to summon a new weapon. But being that you create them from demonic energy, unlike with a regular weapon, you're not just stuck if it breaks. You create a new one and keep fighting. That's why this is a very effective format for combat when dealing with close-range confrontation. It allows you to utilize the appropriate amount of energy depending on the enemy that you're encountering. If your enemy is weak, a basic weapon is all that's really necessary to beat them. But if your opponent is powerful, then in order to defend against their attacks and to launch effective counterattacks of your own, you'll need the weapon to be powerful, strong enough to protect you, and strong enough to deal damage, even if they have layers of protection. This is a very powerful tactic that's very ranged in its effectiveness. It all depends on how well you can gauge your enemy. It's my particular style. And take in mind that this training will simply get you accustomed to using that type of weaponry. Get something specific for you. However, somewhere down the line, you may get the capability of getting a solid weapon that you don't have to provide any energy for. For example, Taleon, your father has no need to produce artificial weapons like you're producing now. He wields a blade that's basically legend. It's one of the treasures held by the Matara kingdom, a blade that has very few equals. The amount of power it would take to break that blade, well, let's just say it's very, very unlikely. So, as I said, sometime along your path, you may find it optimal to switch over to a physical weapon that you don't create yourself. This is fine, and actually does work to your benefit if you find something strong enough. But this is always a useful technique to know because it gives you something to fall back on in case the weapon that you get isn't up to par and eventually breaks. Now, there are very advanced weapon techniques that you could learn somewhere down the path, but for now, we're skipping over those. What you need is basic combat, training, and experience. You need to know what it's like to be in a fight, know how to wield your weapon effectively, and that's exactly what this training is going to do. Now that you've both summoned your weapons, we can begin. Rico, come stand beside me, Salus said, spreading his left arm out and gesturing for Rico to stand beside him. Okay, Rico said as she skipped her way over, happily, still having fun looking at the long-bladed nails that she had created for herself, seeming quite content with them. As she did, a large amount of thick, billowy fog began to drift from Salus. It was exceptionally thick, beginning to fill the area, making it almost impossible to see. But just as quickly as it spread out, it began to gather into several forms, thinning out the fog in the area as everything took solid shape, creating a series of figures standing beside Salus. Each of them appeared different. By all appearances, they appeared to be different kinds of demons. most of which didn't look very human at all. Okay, Talion, listen up. This is how your training is going to commence from this point forward. You have a large set of skills. All of them can be exceptionally useful, both in regular life and in combat. But, along with your combat training, you need to learn how to use those abilities effectively in a fight. And so, I've devised this specific training method for you, which should push your technique, skill, and use of all of your abilities and your combat tactics to the absolute limit. This will make you powerful as a fighter, someone to be wary of coming into confrontation with, once it's all said and done. Do you see the cavalry of demons that I have beside me? He said, gesturing to the lineup. Each and every one of them is particular, at least to you. Currently, their individual forms are a reflection. You're meant to deal with each of them in an individual way. So, let me lay it out for you. You can use any and all of your abilities as freely as you wish. Your fire breath, your ability to absorb demonic energy, and even physical matter. That lava spitting thing you do. And of course, physical attack with that weapon of yours. But here's the catch. Each and every one of the demons that I've summoned beside me will only truly react to one type of physical or non-physical attack. One will only be truly defeated when you use your absorption, swallow him up. Another can only be defeated by hand-to-hand weapons combat, meaning you have to cut him with your sword. Another will only respond to your fire breath. Another will only respond to direct physical interaction, meaning you have to punch or kick it, make some type of physical attack with your body. And I'm going to be sending all of them in at once. You're going to be fighting the lot of them. You can defend yourself in whatever way you choose, but if you attack and destroy one of these enemies in a manner that is not the specific format required for their destruction, then I'll simply produce 2 of them and send them in. Basically, if you kill them with any method besides the method specific to them, all you'll do is double your trouble. Kill the one that requires fire breath with your sword, and it doubles. Kill the one that requires a direct physical attack with your fire breath, it doubles. Kill the one that you have to absorb with a physical attack, it doubles. On and on. The only way that you successfully pass this test is if you destroy all of the demons that I've summoned, using their effective weakness of sorts. At that point, you will have passed the test. But don't get too excited. That just means you pass the first difficulty level. Every time you successfully pass the test and move on, I'll change it up. Create a new series of demons with different physical appearances, even upping their strength and abilities. And there'll be no telling which one has which weakness. That's something that you'll have to figure out through active combat. You're kidding me, Talion said, staring at the demons, the assortment of which did look somewhat frightening. There were several small ones and 2 large ones, all various shades and colors. Some with horns and claws, others had weapons, but they all looked fairly frightening. You're telling me I have to beat them? And that even if I do, you're just gonna make it harder? Yeah, kid. That's exactly what I'm telling you. Oh, and it's not over yet, because we still haven't gotten to Rico's involvement. Rico is what you would amount to a commander unit in this little game of ours. Every once in a while, I'll decide to throw her into the ring. She's special reinforcements. But here's the catch, Taleon. There's no telling who she's reinforcing. Every time I send her in, I'll flip a coin. Heads, she's on your side. And any demon that she successfully attacks and defeats will be defeated regardless of the specific requirements for them. But if it's tails, then Riko goes in as an enemy unit, and she'll attack you. Sometimes directly, other times she could be sneaky about it. It all depends on what I tell her when she goes in. And you'll be the one deciding when that happens. Once every 15 minutes or so, I'll summon a balloon. A bright blue balloon that glows a bit. Each one of these balloons is a marker, telling you you have one opportunity to summon Riko to the field, regardless of whether she's an adversary or an ally. This is a measure of unpredictability. Riko is in essence random chance. On a real battlefield, you can't truly divine what's going to happen. Unexpected turns of events happen all the time. Enemies that you underestimated come to bear with full force. Smart tactical decisions change the flow of combat, either for or against you. There's never any way to truly know what's coming. That's the element that Riko is going to simulate. The random flows of combat, whether it works for you or against you. Every time you choose to summon her to the field, it's a tactical decision on your part, weighing the option of whether it will be beneficial or counterproductive. You're taking your chance on random chance, and whether it will favor you or not. If you get stuck in a bad situation, you can always summon her to the field, so long as you have a balloon. But take in mind, as I said, Riko's not always going to be on your side. And not only that, but she's going to be using the enhancement rods that you created. So, she'll be faster and stronger than she normally is. That's why I had you imbue them. The enhancement rods should put her on par with you, at least for the duration that she's on the battlefield. All of these different combined elements, which I'm sure to you right now seem overwhelming, will teach you to be an effective warrior, to fight your way through any situation, to calculate your odds, even in the midst of a fight, to think strategically, move effectively, and act decisively, all while giving you a mastery of your own abilities. It's the perfect training regimen for you. Your vast physical strength and speed and demonic energy make it exceptionally hard to train you in any practical way. You may think this is a bit unfair, but I assure you, for the strength that you possess, this is quite reasonable and necessary in order to truly push you. Kid, I'm gonna make you strong. Stronger than you probably ever thought you could be. All training sessions will last until such time as Riko runs out of rods. That's your timer, which is just another element thrown into it, really. Because if you think about it, the training lasts as long as you're willing to make it last. You can not use Riko, but as long as you hold off on summoning her to the battlefield, whether it's for or against you, the fight persists. So the only way it truly comes to an end is if you take the chance to summon her at all. But you still have to be tactical about when you do it. Just another layer to the training. This is how things are going to continue from this point forward. Each and every day, this process will continue until all of Riko's rods have been used, at which point you'll get a short break. After which, we'll begin training with your magic. I'll try to teach you what spells that I can, and allot you some time in order to figure things out for yourself. This will be training time spent with experimentation, trying to find an appropriate balance that fits you. And of course, if you wish, you can bring this training into your combat practice. However, this also makes things more difficult for you. Every time you add a new ability to the list of things that you're going to be using in your combat training, I'll add a new demon that reacts only to that specific kind of attack. So, I suppose I've held this off long enough, Sayla said, raising his hand and pressing his fingers together. Your training starts now, he said, as he snapped his fingers, and suddenly the flurry of demons beside him began to rush in. And with that, Taleon began the run of what he would describe as the most difficult few days of his life.